slides to advance here. Up here we go. Is that I've got an objective today, and my objective for you partners and you marketers that are listening in is to get you to rethink your budget this year and to think about how you've been spending in the past and perhaps think about new ways of spending your budget so you can get seen more online, so you can get more leads, and ultimately so you can get more return on your investment from your marketing spend. And I'm going to talk real about the rules that are shaping this particular objective. There's 7 in particular, and you can keep score to see if these rules are really impacting you and how they may impact the allocation of your budget for this coming year. So some of you may know me. I have been a CPA firm marketer for well over a dozen years. I'm a HubSpot certified partner. I have been in budget meetings more times than I care to shake a stick at. And so I come from a world that kind of bridges the old way of doing budgets and budget allocations and the different types of spends into this new world, into the world where we're seeing various transformations that are really impacting marketing budgets. So, of course, you can visit our website and see more on my bona fides, but I really want to start getting into some of these major transformative rules that are going to affect the way that you do your budget. So the first one is that you need to be aware that there are just sweeping changes occurring, changes in approaches, changes in technologies, and these approaches really are going to impact how you're going to spend your budget, so how you're going to spend your marketing budget. I mean, in the old days, if we were talking 3, 4, 5 years ago, we'd be talking about spending our budget on direct mail or on print advertising, doing telemarketing. Maybe we'd even do some broadcast advertising. And we would be pushing our messages out to our prospects, and in many cases, we didn't even have a very good handle on who those prospects were or what type of interest that they have. But in this new environment, we've got all different types of ways of reaching people and on all different types of devices. It's not only on our desktop, but it's on our mobile phones, it's on our iPads. We're able to access information through channels ranging from Google to YouTube to Pinterest to SlideShare. We're also seeing that folks are now spending time searching for information. And that's perhaps one of the most sweeping and fundamental changes that are occurring that's going to impact the way that you spend the budget, and that it needs to be spent in a manner where you are getting found by people doing searches, and it needs to be spent on certain types of infrastructure and products and technologies that will accommodate this getting found first objective that you should have. So you've all been affected by this. Many of you they have smartphones, you are working on iPads, so you certainly know that the amount of intrusion that you've been facing from traditional media is really diminished in light of these new approaches, these new technologies, and that stands as true for the work that we do in accounting marketing as it does for any other B2B or any other consumer-based product or service. So I'm going to talk about what I think are the most sweeping of these changes that are going to affect your budget. But when I talk about budget and I talk about accounting marketing, I always start by paying homage to the fact that, there's still a certainty that will never change that most of your new business is going to come from the one-to-one marketing work that you've done and that you're going to do. It's still the best way of building your practice. It's a tried and true tradition. And the work that I do with my clients and the message that I'm bringing out to the industry is not that we need to change or readapt or do, substitute these new approaches or technologies for this one-to-one marketing. My message is pretty simple. is that the spend that you're doing that is accounting for maybe 10 to 20% of the way you're getting a new business, and it's accounting for 2, 3, 4, maybe 5% of the top line that you're spending, has to be done differently. And that's where I focus, is in the right side of this particular spectrum here. It's really taking a look at that budget that's being spent and asking this question, is are we getting enough productivity out of that spend? Are we getting ROI? Can we track that ROI? Do we know what's working and what's not working? Can we move from anecdote to metric? And when you complement your one-to-one work with this new way of thinking and these new approaches I'm going to talk about, you end up having a very powerful marketing program that works just not along one dimension, but works along many, many different dimensions. We're always going to be working in an environment where our partners, the management committee or team is always going to be asking the marketing department the same question, which is, what did I get out of this spend? I was in a budget meeting last week with a client, and the question came up was, we're spending, tens of thousands of dollars on print advertising. How do we know that we're getting any value for that money? And the demand for ROI is not going to change. But what is going to change is the fact that we can now measure that ROI with a degree of precision that was heretofore impossible. And that precision is coming as a result of the new types of technologies that are available to do that type of measurement. And we're numbers people. We work on balance sheets. We work to, understand how the quantitative dynamics of business. And one of the sweeping changes is an ability now to take that same quantitative discipline and move it into the marketing realm. And I'm going to show in a little bit, I'm going to show a little bit more information about what you can do and how you can do that. All right? So let's talk about what some of the big changes are. And here's number one, is we are now moving into an era where we as consumers are actually giving companies permission to reach out to us. And I want you to think about this. You're sitting here, you're listening to me today because you gave me permission to talk to you. You were exposed to the message that this webinar was happening. You went to a website, you filled out a form, and in effect, you gave me permission to talk to you about this particular subject area. And this is different from pushing information out to you. And so today, one of the things that we see is that people want to receive information that's filtered to their particular interest. And they're using filters like RSS feeds and Google searches and other types of online search capabilities and all different types of media in order to filter their interest directly down to what they want to see. And everything else becomes fluff, things that they're just not interested in. So we have to understand that in order to make our marketing budget as effective as possible, we need to get permission to present information and materials to our prospects and to our clients. And once we get that permission, to not abuse that, to always provide some type of value in how you're leveraging that the permission that you were given. All right. We also know another big change is how important it is to get found first on the search engines. And you may have seen studies that basically showed that the top rankings in an organic search get most of the click-throughs to the website. That's always going to be true. There are some other things that will impact click-through rates, but we certainly want to be able to get to the top of those search engine rankings, and there's a budget implication for that. That implication means that we have to put some of the spend into doing the research and analysis to do SEO, search engine optimization. We have to measure and monitor and make an investment in the technology to let us understand how well or how poorly our efforts are in optimizing our keywords and optimizing our strategies. We know that if we're successful in that and we make that investment to be successful with our budget spend, then we're going to get found, and the chances of moving that search, that eyeball to our website, just increases logarithmically, as you can see here. Right? Another change that we're seeing that's going to impact your budget is the messaging that is being delivered to prospects. Where, when we were in the era of using, killing trees and printing collateral, and we had websites that were, basically online brochures, what we did is we talked about our services. We do audits, we do taxes, we do employee benefit plans. We had a messaging that said, here is an inventory of what we do. But the change that's occurring, and a major change that's occurring that has budget implications, is that firms are starting to use their thought leadership in the forms of content, different forms of content, in order to create differentiation and in order to create a valuable relationship with the people who come into the website. This is, to me, is one of the single most significant changes in accounting marketing, and one of the ones that level the playing field between bigger firms and smaller firms, because someone in a small firm can develop and publish content that's just as valuable as somebody that's in a bigger firm as well. And if we move our argument to the field of our thought leadership, then we not only get a chance to create some competitive differentiation at the corporate brand level, but we also create the differentiation at the personal brand level. So this shift has budget implications in that there needs to be resource investments in creating this thought leadership, whether it's in terms of time or people resources, or whether you're going to go external and hire somebody to help provide this content. This will represent a shift in the way that you're going to spend your budget. Another major change that we're seeing is a movement from outbound marketing into inbound marketing, where significantly less money is being put into what we call these outbound or push tactics, like print ads or TV ads, trade shows, telemarketing. Now, I'm not suggesting that this is zero, that you don't do these types of things, because they may very well have a part and play an important role in your marketing objectives and strategies. What I'm suggesting, and what the data is all showing, is that significantly less money year after year is being put into what we call this interruption type of marketing and into permission-based marketing. And that money flow is being directed into budgeting for things like blogs, or into developing white papers, into doing the analytics for search engine optimization, and so on. And we're going to continue to see this type of shift out of interruption marketing into permission-based marketing. And the firms, the accounting firms that are breaking trail right now and who are doing this type of rethinking and reallocation are the ones that are going to have a superior competitive position down the road, because they're going to already have their infrastructure well established. They're going to have all of the metrics they need to focus in quite accurately, and they're going to have the different types of processes in place that are going to be necessary to accommodate some of these objectives, like getting found first or for promoting thought leadership. So when we talk about inbound marketing, we're talking about a strategy that basically has 4 different elements to it, where it's a function of getting found first online and moving people into your website. And once they're there, the second part is converting those eyeballs into leads and engagements by continually moving that relationship down through a sales funnel. It's pretty likely is that the first time you have a touch with a prospect, they're not going to be ready to buy an audit or ready to buy consulting type of work. It's a relationship that needs to be nurtured, but getting found first, converting it into a lead, and then nurturing it is part of the inbound marketing dynamic. The third thing is that we're always measuring things, and we've got now the technology, because things are digital, we can measure everything. and we can measure down to details and levels of minutia that were heretofore impossible to measure. But there are some critical performance indices that I'll show you in a little bit that are part of this new trend. Now, when we talk about budgeting and how to shift our budget, we're really talking about shifting budget dollars into inbound marketing. And that shift is going to end up in different types of tools that you're going to need. Things like marketing technology. There's all kinds of software out there that can accommodate an inbound marketing platform. Of course, our favorite software is HubSpot, and I'm happy to talk to you more about HubSpot offline, but it is a type of technology and software that kind of has all of these different inbound marketing tools under one roof. Re-engineering the website is also part of an inbound marketing best practice activity, and that engineering or redesign is an expense that needs to be budgeted for. Acquiring content, and whether you buy it from a third party or hire somebody to do it for you in-house, that's still going to be a cost. Spending money for SEO research. Spending money for an email marketing platform is also part of the pantheon of inbound marketing tools that you need to have in order to be effective in a get found first and convert to lead strategy. But the other thing that is a shift that's going to have budget implications deals with the type of people and the type of resources that you have on staff. And these resources need to change, from being folks that might be able to accommodate the production of collateral or accommodate specialty advertising needs. They have to shift into being able to develop and execute an inbound marketing program. And there's a lot of moving parts to inbound marketing. And as you're thinking about the budget allocation, part of that allocation needs to be devoted towards thinking about whether or not you've got the right mix of skills and talents on board in order to be effective in this new environment. Right. So, the shifts, have been measured by folks like Marketing Sherpa, Marketing Profs, SEO Moz. There's a number of firms out there that really keep where's the shift going? Where are you going to spend more money in your budget next year? And of course, one of those areas is in lead generation. So you can see when I look down at all of these different tactics, web optimization, social media, content marketing, email marketing, you can see that people are going to either be increasing their budget or have increased their budget in 2012 for that things. And then some of the more traditional types of media, direct mail, trade shows, print advertising, the spending on that is coming down. And the reason why is because they're losing their effectiveness. They're based on interruption marketing rather than permission-based marketing. And the fact that the cost per lead is significantly less when it comes to using some of these inbound marketing approaches and tactics than in some of the more traditional tactics. So, you can see, for example, that in 2012, the data showed that the cost per lead for an outbound marketing dominated environment was over 60% greater than in an inbound marketing dominated environment. And those costs are going to continue to come down. So when we're thinking about lead acquisition and we're starting to measure those costs and we're thinking about it from a budget perspective and we're starting to think about ROI, we need to start thinking about doing a shift where we're getting more productivity for less of a spend, and inbound marketing is showing us that that is possible to do. So again, inbound marketing costs 61% less per lead than traditional outbound marketing. And there's a report that I think will be very enlightening for you called the State of Inbound Marketing from HubSpot that was published a few months ago that shows some more details behind the statistics and how they came up with this particular number. So here's another thing that's changing that has an implication, which is the ability to measure and the ability to measure everything. And the types of measurements that we need, that we want to do, are things like where are the sources of our traffic, where are the sources of our leads, how many people are converting on landing pages that we have on our website, what's our social media following. Once we have a perspective on those types of measurements, then what we are able to do is to really make some tough and hard decisions about where we're getting the biggest bang for our buck. The ability to measure everything is very, very important. And the the budget implication here is that you need to spend money to purchase the technology that enables you to do that type of measurement. And I know a number of you have Google Analytics, and I know that there's no quote, out-of-pocket cost for that. But Google Analytics only provides one part of the story. And as a marketer, my interests are really more towards how many leads am I getting out of something rather than how much site traffic am I getting out, which Google is very effective at doing. But I can measure lots today with the types of technology that's available. There's a budget implication because there's a cost to that. Right? So another implication is that social media is really starting to play a huge role in accounting marketing, and all of these social media things are basically no cost, no out-of-pocket costs. But we're starting to see folks like LinkedIn and Twitter and Facebook trying to monetize their channel by offering up promoted tweets or offering up advertising or pay-per-click opportunities, etc. But the other cost here is a resource cost, because the amount of time that it takes to effectively manage a comprehensive social media plan is substantial. Megan and I, before we went on today, we were talking about just how much time went into doing the using Twitter to promote this particular webinar, not only from the iShade perspective, but also from Vitberg LLC's resources as well. And here is a resource and a cost, again, that a couple of years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, would not be part of the budgeting plan. But today we need to budget a resource to be able to do this in order to compete effectively. And we're particularly interested in seeing that resource, used in a LinkedIn environment. And there are just a lot of aspects of LinkedIn that you can explore. And if you're not aware of this, LinkedIn in the last day or two just put some major changes in place to your corporate LinkedIn pages. So go onto your LinkedIn account and take a look at those changes, and somebody at your firm is going to have to go and make those changes. And again, here's a budget implication, because it's a resource that needs to be devoted towards making sure that your LinkedIn presence is working at its fullest potential. Okay. Now, again, I think LinkedIn for professional services and accounting firms is the #1 way to go. There's a lot of research out there that shows that LinkedIn is driving customers into a B2B environment more so than any of the other social media channels that are out there. So it makes sense to invest in LinkedIn. And that investment requires not only participation from the marketing department side, but also from partners as well, in order to really leverage the potential of LinkedIn, partners now need to devote marketing resources to being part of different groups or communities where they have a chance to participate and build their brand and become an expert, in whatever field that their expertise lies. So, as we're seeing this shift here, we're starting to get these measurements about how effective social media is in terms of lead generation. And again, what we're seeing is, because it is working, that marketers are starting to shift budget more and more into social media. And in 2011, that increase was 20%. And what the statistics I've seen for 2012 indicate that it's going to be closer to 30% for 2012. So again, as a marketer, and I'm thinking about my budget, I'm also looking at what other folks are doing and how they're being effective and where and why they're spending. So I'm thinking I need to put more money into my social media budget, and I've got to figure out how to do that, whether it's additive to my budget or whether I need to get rid of something in my budget that's not working as effectively. Right. So, I mean, there are lots and lots of different types of technologies out there that you can employ as part of this shift and as part of your thinking about budget. I mean, it is like drinking out of a fire hose at times because of the rapidity at which these new types of technologies come online. And some of them are additive or cumulative in that they attempt to host a number of different types of capabilities under one roof, and some of them are just single adaptations of a technology. But you need to think about in your budget, what technology do you need and do you want to use? And again, we're fans of HubSpot, but there are certainly some very, very strong pieces of technology out there, but there's a cost to them, and that cost has to be accommodated in your budget. Right. So, so I've talked about some of these transformational shifts that are going on, in terms of technology, approaches, the way people are interacting and looking for information rather than having information pushed on them. So I'm going to move on and talk about some of the other rules of the road here. So here's our next rule of the road for you, is that you must demand ROI from the budget, okay? And you have to have a way to, assign accountability and monitor those results. So there are a number of key performance or KPIs that we recommend that you accommodate, and that, again, you find the technology that can give you these types of insights. And these are things like, visitors, where your traffic is coming from, the URLs that are referring into you, keyword performances and rankings, and so forth. By measuring those things, we get a chance to see if we need to shift or allocate money into underperforming KPIs. Okay, so I mean, I'm looking at, am I getting traffic from organic search, or am I getting traffic from direct search? What are my conversion rates? When I put a landing page up on my website, what kind of conversion rates am I getting from eyeball to a lead? How's my social media doing? I mean, I can go on and talk about a lot of these different KPIs, but part of your marketing strategy needs to, and that's a strategy that has a budget implication, is to figure out which of these KPIs are most important to help you meet your marketing objectives, and then you can find the technology and purchase that technology that'll help you measure that. And so another rule of the road is that you have to have a debate about whether you should be putting money into corporate branding or putting money into lead generation. And this is a tough one, because this transition here says, well, it's really tough for me to measure the ROI out of the spend I'm doing on corporate branding, but I can measure it on lead generation. But I will tell you that the priorities that we're seeing and how people are spending their budget is much more directed towards lead generation than anything else. Is that branding becomes a secondary function of lead generation, but firms want the leads to come in for partners or rainmakers to call upon, and the spending towards generating those leads is outpacing any other things like awareness building or research, for example. Okay. Next rule here is this is the fighting rule, okay, which is you've got to make some hard choices. Many of you have a number of different niche practices, and some of the marketing budgeting processes of the past have been to be as egalitarian or utilitarian as possible when it comes to dispersing that budget. But it's time to make some hard choices, okay? And you've got to, if we're looking at our budget through the filter of ROI, then we've got to spend where we're going to get the highest degree of return. So, we're looking for opportunities in this upper right-hand quadrant where, there is the market demand and the opportunity is great, and the differentiation that you bring certain types of differentiation to that. I've seen this exercise in terms of firms deciding upon what types of audits that they really want to promote. Or what types of consultative services that they want to promote. But I've also seen this where there's been firms that have been spending branding money in quadrant 4 where there's virtually no differentiation between what they bring to the table and what the competitors bring to the table, and there's really not a lot of demand for the opportunity. So, this is just a quick little tool that basically says, look, we have to look for the ones and twos, okay? And we have to, maybe minimally maintain a spend for the threes and fours. So where do we find some of this money? Okay, well, part of it may come from, killing some of the sacred cows or the legacy programs that you have, and you may have been investing in these for years, and now it's time to take a look and to perhaps get rid of them out of your budget. These could be things like association memberships. If you're paying for association memberships for your staff and they're not leveraging that membership and all they're doing is going there and showing up at the meetings and you're not taking advantage of what the opportunities are, I think get rid of it. Okay? It's just not paying off. Paid advertising, probably not paying off. Yellow pages, spending money on, any types of hard copies, collateral or hard copy newsletters probably isn't going to pay off. And we can start to take some of this money and we can start to shift it towards funding things like improving our website or looking into content marketing or improving our inbound marketing capabilities. So with that, another rule here is that you've got to rethink your website, and this is where a significant amount of budget money and allocation may need to be spent. And that reallocation comes in the form of switching it from simply being an online brochure into the absolute centerpiece and the hub of your entire marketing program. And for most firms, what that means is either they need to do a complete redesign of their website because now it's 3, 4, 5 years old. And if you've got a website that's 3, 4, 5 years old, it's probably creaky, and it's probably time to really take a pretty critical look about going back to that the shelf life of that site has now expired. Because when we talk about our website being our hub, we're really using it to and once we get found, we're using it to convert visitors into leads. So we are driving people with our emails or blogs or our any types of advertising that we're doing into our website where we're capturing information in a form. We've got a lead at that point that we can start to put into the top of our sales funnel and then through the nurturing process. But the spend for websites will be one of the significant ways that you're going to see long-term ROI out of your marketing budget as you move it from merely being an online brochure. So the seventh rule here is another type of investment that you need to make, and that's that investment in a content marketing strategy. And that's and what content marketing basically is a situation where you are going to be converting the thought leadership of partners and subject matter experts into materials that can be published or promoted or shared. And it's interesting that there's an iShade discussion that I saw in one of the groups that talked about partners not being willing business developers. And my thought was, well, boy, I mean, what a great opportunity to take a reluctant rainmaker and to have them work on content and to contribute content rather than trying to turn them into a salesperson. Because if we can do that, then what we're accomplishing here is not only building their personal brand, but we're getting that differentiation, and their contribution really falls more in line with their comfort zone and their comfort level. And I think I'm going to write something in response to that tomorrow. So, when we're looking at shifting budget money into content marketing, we do it with goals in mind. Whether it's creating the brand awareness, the ability to get found first, or acquiring customers, or generating leads. We always need to look at our spend from the perspective of how it's going to contribute to our ROI. And in 2012, the Content Marketing Institute did work and asked B2B marketers about, why were they spending, budget money on content. And the answer basically came back as, awareness, acquisitions, and lead generation were the top three reasons. So the shift, okay, as they shifted money away from some of the more traditional spending tactics and shifted it into inbound marketing and content marketing, they did it with an objective in shape, which is to get the ROI in terms of growing the brand awareness and acquisition customers and leads. So, we're seeing that, typically, a CPA firm is going to invest, 2 to 5% of their top line into marketing. And if we look at outside of the industry about what other B2B firms are investing, they're investing about a quarter of their total budget into content marketing. And again, I'm thinking, gee, I mean, where's the smart money going? And if the smart money is going into content, there must be a pretty good reason for that. And if we're seeing that firms are increasing their spend for content marketing, then there's got to be a reason for that as well. And we know what it is: awareness, acquisition, and leads. So, I mean, if you look at your budget and and you can probably do some quick math here about what 25% of your marketing budget translates into in terms of a content marketing, you can start to get a sense of some of the transformational shifts in reallocating your budget that may be necessary to be as competitive as you possibly can. So what is, I talked about content marketing. You said, well, what are you talking about, Vitberg? What is content? Boy, there's so many different types of content out there, so many different things. Ebooks, articles, white papers, web pages, discussion forums, seminars. I mean, the list can go on and on and on. And it's a pretty safe bet to say that probably in your files right now, or whether they're electronic or hard copy, you probably have a number of these different types of content marketing tactics that can be re-leveraged and repurposed and rewritten for awareness and lead generation. So, what I might do, for example, is to take some research that you've done, publish it in the format of a blog, optimize that blog with keywords, and now I'm working on the basis of the fact that if somebody is doing a search on that blog topic, that the chances that I'm going to show up or you're going to show up in the search engine rankings becomes that much more realistic. But there is no such thing as a dearth of content. We work with clients, for example, they say, "Wow, we don't know what to write about." Well, one of the tricks that I don't want to say it's so much a trick. One of the tips that we do is we'll sit down with the partner and say, "What are the 5 questions that your clients are asking you?" And we have them answer those 5 questions, and we've got 5 blog posts. So, that content is always out there, and it's a consistency and a commitment to it that's really going to impact some budget allocation issues for you next year or in successive years. So let's talk about, as a kind of wrap up here, is we're going to talk about what we're seeing as hot and what we're seeing as not hot for 2013 budgets. We're seeing less money being spent on advertising, especially paid advertising. We're seeing less money going into sponsorships, and we're also seeing a decrease in funding for hard copy collateral as firms are moving more and more towards making their websites kind of the hub of their marketing programs. So in terms of what's hot and what you might think about in terms of the structuring your budget, think about content marketing, okay? And think about the cost of acquiring content. Think about the resources that you need for that, whether they're internal or external resources. Think about an inbound marketing program, and that includes the technology, the software and the technology that you need to acquire in order to have the proper infrastructure to do inbound marketing correctly. We're going to see money being put into very specific tactical lead gen strategies, where folks will be organizing campaigns around perhaps a webinar or perhaps a white paper or an ebook that they're publishing, not so much for the sake of doing branding, but really for the sake of generating leads, for putting leads into the top of that sales funnel that can be nurtured over time to an engagement. We're seeing budget allocation going towards helping partners and subject matter experts develop personal brands through thought leadership. Now, some of that is also involves getting them more involved and more integrated with LinkedIn strategies, especially in the use of and participation in groups, but also in terms of helping them with developing a publication schedule. Now, I don't believe that partners and subject matter experts should be responsible for doing all of the person behind the curtain publication activities that it takes to do a blog post, but I certainly think that they can come to the table with 400 or 500 words once or twice a month, that can be given over to the marketing department for publication in a blog, and then we can measure some of those things and see how effective that posting is. We're going to see money going into search engine optimization. And SEO is not a one-time effort. SEO is a continuing effort. And this is something that's most likely going to require the use of an outside expert to help take a look at what keywords are driving traffic to the site, which in turn will give you some insights about how to direct some of your content perhaps. We're going to see resources being put into social media, especially in terms, I believe, of hiring people with the right skill sets to accommodate a comprehensive, multi-dimensional social media strategy. Because again, there's many moving parts to social media, and these just keep on increasing just about every single day. Websites, and if your website is not built around some of these ideas of best inbound marketing practices, or if it's old, or if you look at it and say, gee, it's really just an online brochure, then time to start putting money into doing and thinking about a new website and going through that process. And the last thing that we're going to see are things like people putting money into growing their databases and into using things like CRM as a means to help understand and to help manage the interaction and the flows between your rainmakers and the prospects that are out there. And I will say that CRM, has been kind of a hot topic for a number of years in the accounting business. I'm not quite sure that we're there yet in terms of proving that it is the promise and the premise of CRM is being paid off, because it really takes a pretty substantial commitment of time and energy and mind share to do it effectively. But we're seeing more firms going that way so that they can actually see and measure the impact of what's called a closed loop system, from bringing a lead in to nurturing that lead to moving them on to an engagement. So those are some of the things that I think are going to be hot for your 2013 budget. So that pretty much brings me to the end of the webinar for today. And again, if you go to, we have a resource page on our website that has a number of different white papers and ebooks that can provide some more detail about a number of the concepts that I talked about today, including inbound marketing and secrets of successful websites. And so we are very happy to be able to provide those materials for you. Please visit our website. Okay, there's some contact information down there if you'd like to, talk to me offline, confidentially about what's going on in your, in your marketing function and department, and more than happy to, share some ideas and some thoughts with you. So with that, the next step is that we go into this Ask the Expert session. And you'll have to, hopefully, this will work out smoothly, because we've never done this before. But my understanding here is that following this, log into your iShade account, and follow the navigation from the practitioner group. You can find this discussion topic, and then ask us questions. And we're happy to discuss anything that about this presentation, or anything else that's in your mind about transformations in marketing. And I just want to thank you, very much for letting me share this time and letting me share some of our thoughts and observations with you. And I also want to thank iShade for not only doing a great service for the accounting community at large, but also for giving me the opportunity to deliver this presentation today. So, Megan, what's next? Well, I guess that what
I'm right
we'll do here
so
is,
we can. Oh, hello. I'm
okay,
here.
okay.
So I'm just going to go ahead and shut this down, and we will plan on seeing everybody on iShade, and you guys can ask Alan any questions that you had that came up in regards to the presentation or want to elaborate on something. So he'll be on iShade for the next hour just answering your questions. So we hope to see you over there.
Good. Thanks so much. Bye now.
Thanks again, Alan. Have a good one.
Okay.